So yeah. Okay, yeah. So we kind of like veered into talking television territory.
Mhm.
So we have our first, I don't know if I want to say proper or real look, something more
Yeah.
substantive,
Mhm.
for the Amazon Lord of the Rings show, Rings of Power,
Mhm.
courtesy of Vanity Fair. We
Mhm.
got a write up. We've had posters the other week, and then from this, a number of screenshots and different cast shares and stuff like that.
Yeah, I believe they
So,
also, sorry to barge in. I think Vanity Fair also hosted, whatever Twitter's version of, like, a podcast is, that, like,
oh,
listening
okay,
thing. They
okay,
hosted something and had some interviews with, production staff. Um, I don't know if any cast were on. I didn't listen long enough to
okay,
know that, but, I mean, they were kind of, going over this article and getting a little bit more,
yep,
like, "Let's chat about it." So
sure.
we've gotten a lot of content is basically what I'm
Well,
trying to add.
this is your baby, so I'll let
Mhm.
you take it away. What do you think from the first reveal, first meaningful reveal?
Whew, man, I am all over the place on this. Um, I I was pleased to see, I'll say right off the bat, I was pleased to see that, Vanity Fair was going through kind of, the production and how these 2 showrunners who are relatively new, in terms of, actually running the show, not new
Yeah.
to show business, are, and kind of what their method was and what their approach was. And they did right off the bat say how they had already watched the first 3 episodes that were already finished. I mean, mostly finished and ready for, you know, mm, production and ready to go, and they
Interesting.
were really excited about it. They slipped that in there. It's not, a standalone sentence. It's not like a big announcement. They kinda just threw it in there, and I read it, was just like, "Wow, okay." Obviously Vanity Fair is gonna be giving them glowing reviews. I have no idea if there's any bias there, if there's any, ties of anything to Amazon. I would hope not, so that, I can put real stock and credence into them saying, "We've watched the first 3 and it's really good, it's really
Oh,
gripping."
Vanity Fair said that they've seen the
Yes.
first three. Oh, okay,
Yes.
okay,
Yeah,
okay,
not the showrunners. I mean, they've obviously
okay.
seen everything they've
Well,
done.
so that was what I was confused. I was like, so wait, the showrunners like came on late or something, so
Yeah.
things were already going, and then okay, I
Oof,
gotcha.
that would be rough. I would be terrified if that was the story.
Yeah,
Replacing
right.
showrunners midway through. They do talk about replacing cast members. They do talk about replacing their lead Tolkien
Elrond.
scholar.
Oh
Yeah, they
yes.
yep, who kind of like blabbed a little bit of secret, nothing terrible, but enough to get him thrown off the project. Um, so
I
yeah,
heard he's
they've been
pretty infamous in terms of Tolkien scholars. He's pretty renowned.
yeah, yeah, he is. So that was obviously a big move, but I mean, they, I think, wanted to show everybody that if you talk, we're coming for you.
I
We want
guess,
to keep
yeah.
this under a lock and key, and they've done it. I mean, we really haven't seen much of anything other than what Amazon has allowed us to glimpse before. Um,
Yep.
we've known nothing. I mean, the whole casting process was a surprise to us. What sounds like it was a surprise to the actors as well. They didn't even know who they were going to be cast as when they were called in. So yeah. I was really excited reading this article. It's hard not to feel sucked in, even though I still have my reservations about many things, including, casting actors as, well-known characters' younger selves. I really feel like I'm gonna have a hard time with it. But by the same token, they also talked about a couple of new characters, um, both from Tolkien's mythology, who we just haven't seen on the screen before because we've been talking about a different age, and then also new characters who are original characters who are going to be part of this. And I mean, it makes me nervous. Um, you know, I am certainly someone who has enjoyed exploring much of Tolkien's worlds, and his world building. Um, Original characters are always, a wrench and it's, the fly in the ointment. It's God, why is this necessary? I'm hoping this series is going to show me why it's necessary, but I can't say that I'm pleased off the bat to hear that they have a couple of them.
So is tell me if I'm wrong, but it
Mhm.
seems like this is based on a few chapters at the end of the Lord of the Ring, or the end of the Return of the King. So, like, it's about the Second Age, but
Mhm.
it's a lot of what this is based on is there's not a lot written on it. So it's not particularly precise. Like a lot of people want to do the Silmarillion because there's a
Yeah.
lot there, but they can't do the Silmarillion or something like that. And
So,
so they
yeah.
have this, but it's
So,
kind of a lot to fill in
yeah, so
potentially.
this is actually pieced somewhat from the Silmarillion. Because it's, pre Lord of the Rings, um, the Second Age, where we're just getting to those histories that Tolkien has taken us into of how are we forging the rings of power. And so some of that does come from the Silmarillion. The Silmarillion, I mean, spans like thousands and thousands and thousands of years. So there's absolutely no way that you could um, tackle that book ever as a whole. You would have to take pieces, and even then, Tolkien is just doing a lot of, you know, this is how the elves came to be. This is the story of their first journey. On Middle Earth and stuff like that. So it's not necessarily like telling stories that would grip you on the screen anyway. But some of this does come from those histories because we are seeing the later parts of the Silmarillion in there, although not a lot. This also comes from, oh yeah, Alan saying we're going to see the story of Celebrimbor. Um, uh, he's not the shipbuilder, is he? I always worry that I'm confusing him with another sea name. There's so many sea names. He
Hmm.
forged the Elven rings. I think Sindar is the shipwright that I'm thinking of. Yeah. Anyway, I'm getting lost in my own mythology here. But yeah, so pieces of this are coming from the Silmarillion. Um,
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it just seems like to me the show is starting off on the wrong foot. I think that the hopeful thing is they're clearly investing a lot of money.
mhm.
I think they broke down in, I think it was the Vanity Fair article. I forget
Mhm.
what I read in there and what I read elsewhere now, but that, like, in comparison to Wheel of Time budget that Amazon also did, this is like 100 million an episode or
Yeah.
something, like an
Mhm.
insane amount of money. And whereas I think they spent 80 million on all of Wheel of Time season one. So they're going all in for sure
Mhm.
on this. Um,
Well,
I
and I
think
mean,
that
not all of that money is going to special effects. Like I was reading in the
no.
article, it's like we're building the actual cities and locations and, much as
Hmm.
Peter Jackson did when he built like Hobbiton, you know, he's building up the
Yep.
Shire. They're investing a lot of money there. So they're clearly thinking we're going to be here for a while. So that's
Yep.
another element of gamble to that.
Yep. I think so. Probably should have like put it down into something more specific and
Hmm.
precise. But I think there's three things that I think they're starting off on the wrong way here. Because so
Hmm.
my positive is that they're clearly throwing everything into this. They
Yeah.
clearly are spending a lot of money, so it should be high production value.
Hmm.
The where it's going wrong, I think one is they have questionable casting choices that if you look around the internet, people are very mixed about. And that's
Hmm.
both from new cast members and from or new characters that are invented and also characters that are known. I think that it's it's been like how do you replace Hugo Weaving? You're right. I mean, I think that's part of your problem,
How do you
but
replace
then
Kate
you
Blanchett?
replace yeah, right. It takes so it's a difficult task to do, but it's still you're spending all this money you couldn't get them and you couldn't de-age them. So I think that's an issue. So new and old casting choices.
Mhm.
Two, in Vanity Fair and then subsequent articles, they preemptively take the opportunity to understand there's going to be backlash and pre-attack people that are going to have that backlash.
Mhm.
So I never think that's a good look for a company. Have confidence in your product, talk about it, be proud about it or whatever. You don't need to go all the way and like gaslight people that are going to potentially have issues with whatever you're making.
Sure.
And then the third thing would be the um shoot, what was my third thing?
Mm.
That's why I said I should have wrote him down. Oh, it's the time we're dealing with here. They mention how the vast amount of time that what they're covering is talking about, and
Mhm.
how so much is going to have to be changed because how do we make a season that covers such an expanse of time and make it coherent and make characters you care about and all the stuff that you can see them move and flow and stuff like that, which makes sense, but is again what should bring people pause. Like, well, maybe this isn't right to adapt then into this,
Mhm.
because we kind of got that with the Foundation on Apple TV Plus. Whereas I, as a unknown, unknown to the property, was enjoying what I was seeing mostly.
Mhm.
But when I talked to friend Tony that very much loves the book, when it first was announced, he's like, well, how are they going to do this? Because it's not really about any characters. It's about the equation. It's about humanity and what happens over the stretches of time and how this all can like, uh, you know, and so how are you going to do this?
Mhm.
And ultimately when you watch, he's like, yeah, they couldn't do it. It didn't,
Yeah.
it's so different. It's just like it's not Foundation. It's just not. So that's what I'm worried about here. Those are my three things I think where they're having problems getting started here. And that doesn't mean it's not going to be good, but it's not looking good for people that are care about the source content.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, I can't disagree with you on any of those points. Those are definitely worrisome points for me. Um, I already stated I get nervous anytime an original character is introduced into something, especially something so beloved. Um, you're really going to have to justify why that was necessary.
mhm,
And I always have a hard time when original characters kind of take over something or become a larger part of something that I don't,
right.
I don't see them in. Um, right away the Vanity Fair article was talking about um, our main girl Galadriel um being adrift at sea with, a totally original character like Hallbrand or something, who's a man running from his past, which is like the most generic, lame
Right.
description ever. I hate that. So silly. And I was just immediately had my hackles up, you know. It's like, who is
Mhm.
this guy? Why is he with Galadriel? Like what importance is he gonna have? Is there gonna be like some shoehorned in like I was immediately spinning tales in my head about how all these things were going to go, how upset I was going to be about them. Not the best way to approach the series. I should give it a chance. I will give it a chance. Um but yeah, it's not something I as a fan of Lord of the Rings am particularly excited about.
Yeah, I
So,
know what you mean because like, I'm building my D&D world. Obviously there's all kinds of characters in there, but there's like central characters and then there's auxiliary characters and then just like people in the street. And so obviously if you have something that is spans a lot of time and it's not particularly detailed, so you're now going to fill in the detail, you're going to have to invent some new characters. But what seems to happen a lot is the existing characters don't fit the kind of story they want to tell. So then they
mhm,
have to invent new characters that we can relate to or we go on the ride with, as
mhm,
opposed to the characters that are actually were actually there.
right.
If you need troops and you need a lieutenant that's just not in the books, you can have a lieutenant, but it's not about him. He's just there and he's a part of it and you have conversations and stuff, but you're following someone that is a central character. And so
Right.
often it's like with Peacemaker, you know, okay, Peacemaker is the central character, but who we get to empathize with and like put in her shoes a little more, or we can relate to, she's the nicer one, is the made up one. Is the
Mhm.
one that was never there to begin with. And so
Mhm.
I see that exact kind of thing coming here. Like you say, it's like we're gonna have Elrond, we're gonna have Galadriel, we're gonna have a lot of familiar characters. But then are they gonna be the touchstones of the show?
Right.
Are they gonna be the important driving things in this? And or are we gonna have some other person, in every city that is actually our anchor, and then they
Mhm.
gets to interact with the known characters.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Which which can work, I mean, there's nothing to say that it can't, but that's a seriously delicate line to tread, especially if you say, like, if we're traveling between different locations and in each location we have the new character that who's kind of our audience stand-in. They get to
Yeah,
introduce us, and they're our stand-in to introduce us to the world. I don't want that. I'm
right.
willing to overlook, you know, special circumstance here or there, if there's really if there's really no other way to do it, if the writers do it well, sure. But yeah, I don't need a whole pack of new characters, especially because what they're already doing, condensing so much action into, this shorter time frame and making things happen all at once. Well, then you have all the stories. You have all the action already. I don't need you to make
Yeah,
up, I mean, some of course must be tied together. Again, I'm not willing to, or I'm not unwilling to say it can't be at all. But if you've already had this discussion of we're gonna condense these storylines so we can have, connected things happen and not have to jump 200 years into the next. Well, then
yep.
by God, tell those stories.
Yeah, and can't we is it wrong to focus on a more narrow slice of time? Isn't there enough that could happen in a smaller, or is it too grand that we must tell it all?
Yeah. Yeah, I obviously I'm not the showrunner and I don't have the answer to that question. But
I mean, I think of my D&D world. Like my
sure.
continent has a history. Well, there's there's different wars and different events that happen. Well, about 100 years ago there was a specific war. Well, why do I have to tell the entire history of the continent in a show, which is going to include characters coming and going because they're not involved in all parts of it? Why can't I tell about this war,
Sure.
this occasion, this coup that took place, and have that be a thing? And then the next season can be a different tale or whatever, or anything.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly a tack that they could have taken. There are plenty of shows out there that you know, focus on different storylines from season to season. I mean, obviously, we have things like Doctor Who, I
Yep.
mean, that's not season to season necessarily, but they do like reinvent the wheel every couple of seasons. Um, Certainly could have taken that tack. Obviously, I'm thinking of things like, um, oh gosh, Miracle Workers, which has the same
Oh,
cast but
right.
tells, like, wildly
Yeah.
different stories.
Yep.
Uh, you could do some version of that, or, kind of scrap it all together and just, entirely new story this time. Obviously, you have things like American Horror Story where,
Yep.
again, you have wildly different stories being told between seasons. I don't know. I'm not really sure if they've just thought it out through one season, or they're really are gaming it out for however many seasons they hope to have. I'm not sure. But
Yep.
yeah, it's another worrisome thing for sure. Um oh gosh, what else was I going to say? Oh, yeah, so the other thing I was a little bit worried about after the article, um they were talking about Galadriel's role, which I was very happy with because of course I'm very interested. And they
Hmm.
were like, "Oh, it's going to be, after." the original um, dark power Melkor has been defeated and Sauron's vanished, and it's supposed to be a time of peace, but Galadriel feels like, oh, there's something not right here. I've got to go figure it out. Feels like maybe, something's coming up. I was like, wow, that's very Lord of the Rings. And I hope it's in a good way. And I hope it's different from Lord of the Rings, the movie
Hmm.
trilogy and the Hobbit trilogy, because there
Right.
was that sort of like, we sense that power is massing and we have to go find out what it is. And I just don't
Right.
really want repeat exploration,
Yeah.
when we're all talking about Star Wars and, you know, um A New Hope and my gosh,
The
7
Force Awakens.
Force Awakens. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's kind of
A
real
repeat.
similar. Kind of
Yep.
a repeat there. I don't want that either. Do I want the feel of the world? Do I want, to be back into gripping with, Sauron rising to power and what does that mean? Sure. But do I want it told in a very different way from the original movie trilogy? Absolutely I do.
Right.
So, I don't another concerning element that kind of came up for me in reading the article.
Yep. Yep. Well, I don't know. Call me call me a crazy person, I guess, but I loved inventing my fantasy world. I think
Mhm.
someone else would too. You could just do that and make something really awesome
Mhm.
that you're inspired by Lord of the Rings, and then you wouldn't have any of this discussion. None of it wouldn't be there.
It's
So,
hard. It's hard because, you know, as a person who loves this so much, you do yearn for more.
mhm.
But how do you balance that yearning for more with the very real and tangible fear that someone who is saying, "Okay, I'm answering the call, I'm taking up the challenge," that same person is also going to ruin what's already been
Yeah.
done so well.
Yeah.
There's no perfect answer. It's a rock and a hard place, and we'll see where Amazon falls on this. But it's a huge
Yeah.
gamble either way.
Yep.
It's brave, it's a huge gamble. We'll
Absolutely.
see.